It's the best drone. It's the best technology.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a senior software engineer. Right now, I work on the CDC info project. Whenever I'm not working, I'm usually hanging out with my dog, going on hikes. We love the outdoors, always looking for our next adventure.
So you're a big dog lover too?
Yes, I love dogs.
Tell us a little bit about how you got your drone and got into using your drone.
So I've always been a huge admirer of DJI and their drones. Ever since I was little, they've always fascinated me. And I've had other drones in the past, but I think once I got my first DJI, I believe it was the DJI Spark at the time, that's when I really fell in love with drones because it was so easy to use and it just worked every time. There was no fiddling around. And ever since then, I've always taken it on vacations, or if I'm ever out with friends, I'll bring it on hikes with me. And they're just so portable that I can bring them anywhere.
Oh, wow, that's great. You know, again, as we talked about, you're a dog lover, and you had a unique situation with a stranded dog. Can you tell us a little about how that started and evolved?
We live near a lake, and the lake was semi-frozen at the time, and I overheard my mom tell me that, you know, there's a dog on the lake, and then there's police officers around our house, and they're trying to get it off the ice. And the first thing that came to my mind was, you know, I also have a dog, and I know that my dog is scared of the drone. So whenever I fly the drone, my dog always runs away. So I was like, why don't I try using my drone and see if I could scare the dog off the ice? That worked for a certain extent, but the dog seemed unfazed by the drone. And then a police officer recommended that, you know, why don't we try tying a treat to the drone, like a piece of chicken, and see if we can use it as bait to lure the dog off the ice. That worked, as you could see from the video. The dog was following the chicken, and we got it pretty close to the edge.
Oh, wow. You know, who doesn't like some chicken, especially when they've been out on the ice as long as this poor dog had? But
Yes.
it didn't quite fully do the trick, though, did it? Right? You were able to get the dog closer, but tell me what happened next.
As we got it closer to the edge, I guess it was spoofed by all the people that were trying to get it off the ice, that it sort of ran back into the center. And at that point, it was really cold. It was Christmas Eve, and I put my drone in back to charge. I'm like, maybe if the dog is still there later, I'll try to get it again later. Once I got back from dinner, there were still police officers, but at that point, it had gotten so dark that we couldn't really see the dog on the ice. I took my drone out again, and this time what I did was I attached a small flashlight to the bottom of it, and I kind of flew it so it hovered right over the dog so that the police officers could locate that, you know, the dog is still there. And I think that helped the police officers eventually get the dog off the ice, where an officer actually had to make his way out there. And because the dog was scared of humans, it ran off the ice once the police officer got there.
So it did run off the ice then at that point. Were they able to get the dog safe at that point?
Since it was Christmas Eve, as soon as it got off the ice, most people went home after that. And in the early morning, they found the dog on someone's front porch, and they were able to secure it then.
Oh, good. So definitely a good outcome at the end, in large part attributed to your ability to have a drone available, and one you just used as a hobbyist, right? And
Yes.
put to use and just help out as a good Samaritan, as it were.
As a dog owner myself, I could imagine what the owner must be going through. So I was very thankful that I did have my drone with me at that time, that I was able to use it in such manner.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, you know, I applaud you for being willing to help out. You know, as a former fire chief, nowadays people are more reluctant to help in any situation. in one like this to not only help out, but to use something of value to you, that drone, and put it at risk was really a heroic effort that I applaud you for. And it was great to see you jump in there and help them out. And I'm so glad that Christmas miracle, the dog made it home safely, in large part to your efforts and the efforts of the police officers, especially the one that went out onto the ice, which is, really dangerous. So
Yes.
I just thank all of y'all for what you did.
I live in Bartlett, Illinois. I have been an educator, an administrator at a high school, taught some football, and started teaching computer science as well. I bought my first drone, a DJI Phantom FC40. Loved it so much that I followed it up very quickly with the DJI Phantom Vision 2 Plus, and eventually got that promise that I told my wife that I was only buying one drone, and eventually got my third, which was a DJI Phantom 3 Pro. And it was about that time that I was also doing real estate. My wife's a realtor. So I got my Part 107 license, started taking photos of houses. I had some interesting jobs like videos for golf courses and things like that. Eventually, I got a call from a buddy in downstate Illinois, and he said, Smitty, you have got to buy a thermal drone. And of course, I just needed another excuse. So that's when I purchased the DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise Thermal, or the M3T. That's when kind of my business really took off. I started getting calls to find lost dogs. Took me a while to figure it out and to get better at it, and learn how to deal with clients and what do lost dogs look like with the thermal scope and things like that. Ended up upgrading to the Matrice 30T this last summer. The business has really picked up and taken off.
Wow, that's really great to hear. And how is that helping you be successful in what you've been doing, and how the drones are helping you with finding those missing pets?
It's so interesting because I didn't even think that was where this was going. It just started happening. I put my name out there a couple of sites and just started getting calls.
Is there anything that you can share, some, maybe I call them the golden nuggets, those little tips and tricks that are probably some of the biggest help for someone that's looking to do this, either business or volunteer?
Sometimes I get so focused on the search that I forget the client element that's there. So I try to remember to take some time so they know what they're looking at on the screen. A lot of these situations, the dog is within a mile of the home. Unfortunately, there's some scammers out there. So normally at the point that I've called, they've had some people saying that they have the dog and they just need to send some money, or even people claiming to be drone pilots saying that they have a 97% rate and you have to send money ahead of time. So I encourage people that want to do this to, one, be okay with not accepting payment until the end. I think that sets us apart of being professional. Making sure you have the right equipment to get the job done. So I highly advise a monitor of some sort so they can kind of watch and help direct you. But also, they're going to, not intentionally, but they're going to lie to you about where the dog is. They're going to have an idea. I think the dog is here, but that is also probably the area that they have walked through the most, and they have maybe even unintentionally scared the dog away from that area. So don't be afraid to really look at the map ahead of time and kind of put yourself in the dog's, I was going to say shoes, but I don't think they're wearing shoes, but put yourself in the dog's mind. The dog goes into survival mode, and really noises, even owners calling out their name, can really startle a dog. The dog typically is not going to come out for that. They're going to hide and try to find an area that they find safe. So that's really important. I think I've really not gotten used to the fact that there's this whole recovery thing. I'm starting to get there, but that recovery part is the part that you have to really coach up the owners, the clients, about luring the dog instead of trying to call out to the dog. And there's all sorts of things like that. So partnering with a local volunteer dog search and rescue place is also another great idea. They have a ton of tips, and if you can develop that partnership, I think that whole team really makes an effective search and rescue for pets.
Wow, that's some great advice. And what kind of challenges have you faced, or do you feel like you're facing, coming up utilizing drones for this?
Unfortunately, right now in our political times and relations with different countries, it's tough to get the DJI drones in the hands of the people that want to use them. And so I can't imagine if I was in a spot of a new pilot, you want to do this, you want to help people, you may have even ordered your DJI drone and you can't get it right away. So that's very frustrating. I've seen the used thermal drone market is pretty brutal right now, with people trying to get a hold of thermal drones through other means. But to me, it's worth the wait, and it's worth putting pressure on the lawmakers and the policymakers to try to get these drones back in our hands, because like I said, it's really important. When I went and tried to see, is there another option besides the Matrice 30T, because it's expensive. It's a great piece of technology, but there's a price tag with it, and there's just nothing. And I am so happy that I went this route. It's been vital to my business.
It's unfortunate to hear that there are those challenges out there that would hinder your ability to use a product that, ease of use and has the functionality that you need, that as you mentioned, you've looked at, and this is for a price that you can afford, because you're doing this out of your pocket. This is not, you're not getting any funding anywhere else. And that also kind of, some people, well, why would you charge to do this? We're talking a great expensive equipment, but then also, this is something that you're having to do in your off time and travel a lot of times pretty good distance. You've got a lot of your costs there for fuel and things. And at least for me, it's very understandable, but having the right equipment for someone that's going to save a life, and, having been a firefighter for as long as I was, to me, a life is a life is a life, whether that was an animal or a human. You're doing such a tremendous service, and to hear how you're utilizing the drones in that is phenomenal for me. And so thank you so much for what you're doing, and also thank you so much for the time you took to meet with us.
Yeah, thanks for sharing my story and getting the word out, because there's a lot of people that when they reach out and when we finally connect, they go, "Oh, I wish we would have known about you at for this other situation." So thanks for getting the word out.
Outstanding. Well, thank you.